are going to look at business meeting and what it is and what it entails and what is expected of the pastor as far as this important meeting of the church is concerned. So as part of intro, I think I will skip this aspect that I somehow attended to yesterday, but I'll start at the organizational levels that we also looked at yesterday, but with a different emphasis today. On page 29 of the church manual, it says there are several organizational levels within the church, leading from the individual believer to the worldwide organization of the work. And you realize that the Adventist Church is more of an interconnected global community of organisms and systems that influence each other directly and also indirectly. So these are interconnected. This interconnected global community is made up of about 4 organisms. That's the local church, the conference, the union, and the general conference itself, together with its 13 divisions. So you realize that the 5 that are found in the manual are 4. The 4 of them are the ones that we find in our practice, in our setting. So instead of having 5, which includes the union of churches, this side we only have the local church, the local conference, the union conference, and the general conference together with its division. Now, let's visit page 29 again of the same church manual. It says, membership units in each of these levels. Which levels? The 4 levels that we have talked about. It says membership units in each of these levels, they periodically convene formal business sessions known as constituency meetings or sessions. So this side of the world, our most common term, the most popular term that we use is session, but they are also called constituency meetings. So in other settings, you hear them talking of constituency meetings. So it's basically a meeting. It's also a session. And the constituency meeting or session of a local church is generally referred to as a business meeting. So look at it from this perspective. We have 4 organizational levels, and of the 4, when they convene these periodic business sessions or formal business sessions, the other 3, they call them constituency meetings or sessions. But the local church, it is called a business meeting. So in short, the business meeting is more of a constituency meeting, but the term or the name used is a bit different. Now, you will also realize that I was quoting the North America Division website where it says every unit of church organization, that is the local church, the local conference, the union conference, the general conference, and institutions, conducts periodic business meetings to address important matters. The election of persons to leadership roles is one of those important matters. So you will realize that this same website of the North American Division is basically emphasizing the same, that when we gather these periodic business meetings, when we do it, we are doing it because it's standard practice, not just at local church level, but it's standard practice throughout the organization. So this whole organization up to the GC, periodically it is expected that each of these entities, each of these levels conducts periodic business meetings, meaning they are periodic, meaning at some point in time you expect to have a business meeting. And what does business meetings do? Business meetings basically address important matters, meaning there are issues that have to be handled, that they have to be addressed, that they have to be deliberated during these business meetings. So one of the other business items or agenda items during these business meetings is election of persons to leadership. So it's not the main business, or it's not the only business, but it's one of the other roles. Then you also realize that according to page 134, it says the business meeting is the constituency meeting of the local church. This is how the church manual describes the business meeting. So it says it is the constituency meeting of the local church. So I was trying to think in this manner to say, if the business meeting is the constituency meeting of the local church, so it means just like we do constituency meetings or sessions at conference level, and every one of us is aware that at the union, Dr. Msara hinted this, end of year, that is 2025, at the union, there is going to be a session or a constituency meeting. It is common knowledge as well that end of this year, end of next year, that is 2026, as a conference together with EZC, we are going to have constituency meetings. We are also going to have these sessions. So they are periodic, and if it happens, as an example, that come 2026, and we choose not to announce, or we choose not to call a constituency meeting so that the constituents may gather and have a constituency meeting. If we do that and we find ourselves us in office in 2027, it means once we get into 2027, whatever we'll be doing in that particular year, because there was no constituency meeting that was done, and yet it was supposed to be done, the natural thing that will happen there is officially the people that are there in office, because they chose not to announce or to call a constituency meeting for business agenda items to be discussed by the constituency, including electing leaders. It means whatever will be done by that leadership, they are doing that illegally, number one. Two, they are also doing it unconstitutionally. So in other words, whatever they are doing is not constitutional. Whatever they are doing is illegal. So those people will be in office illegally. And whatever they will vote to accomplish or to do is being implemented illegally. So I was thinking, coming back to the local church as well, to say, if these levels are supposed to have periodic business meetings, the same applies if a local church runs without convening, without calling business meetings to discuss business of that particular church. That leadership, that church board, and the church at large is actually operating illegally, because business meetings are supposed to be periodic meetings meant to give guidance to the church as far as operations are concerned. So whatever is done, especially at the local church level, just as constituency meetings cannot be ignored, cannot be forfeited, the same applies even at the local church level, that every local church is expected to be having business meetings whenever they are due, because they are periodic. It means when the time comes, they are supposed to do a business meeting. So it goes on to say members in regular standing are encouraged to attend, and they are entitled to vote. So people that are supposed to attend local church business meetings are those in regular standing. And it also says a member under censure has no right to participate by voice or vote. In short, if someone is under censure, they cannot participate during business meetings. Then it goes on to say, I will quote page 104 of the Minister's Handbook. It says the church business meeting is the highest authority in the local church. A church business meeting may be held monthly or quarterly according to the needs of the church. So the church business meeting is the highest authority. So whatever is done without the knowledge of the highest authority, it ends up being an illegality, because not everything is charged to the church board to implement. Some things they are supposed to recommend to the highest authority, and even those in various offices there, they are not charged to implement everything. There are things that are supposed to be ratified or to be approved first by the business meeting for their implementation to be legal. So it is important that we note that every local church cannot run because, without involving the business meeting, because it is the highest authority at the local church. So if it is the business, if it is the church board that is doing literally everything, in short, that board is actually running illegally, because there are issues, there are things that they are supposed to recommend to the next level, which is the highest authority, being the church business meeting. So it's important that we have business meetings. Then you also notice on page 134 of the church manual, it says business meetings should be announced a week or two in advance at the regular Sabbath worship, with detail as to time and place. The pastor and elder chosen by the pastor, or in some cases, the conference president or his designee, serves as chairperson of the business meeting. So what happens here is that business meetings, for it to be called a business meeting, for it to be a business meeting that has been legally or officially or properly convened, it has to be announced minimum a week up to 2 weeks in advance. So what that means is, if during the Sabbath, like some churches do, early morning, what do we do? As elders, we sit down and we see, I think today we can have a business meeting. Then during divine service, we announce to the church, in the afternoon, we are going to have a business meeting. So when we do that, that even if we do it and we run the business meeting, officially that gathering, that meeting is illegal, naturally, because the notice period was not adhered to. It has to be minimum 1 week and a maximum 2 weeks. And you also realize that even when we call for constituents meetings, there is a notice period that has to be adhered to by the conference to call the whole constituency. If the notice period is shorter or less than the one that is in the constitution, that meeting becomes an illegality. So it's important that we adhere by this. So whatever decision that will come out of an illegal meeting, that vote or that action becomes also illegal. So it's important that we take note of this. Notice period is quite crucial. Actually, we actually discovered that through ACMS, we have actually realized that ACMS, sometimes when you come and you put up information to say, we had a church board to do a discipline on this day, and we did a business meeting on this day, and it happens to be the same day, and there is no period of 7 to 14 days, the ACMS will not accept that action. Reason, it's not according to policy. It's out of sync with policy. So even ACMS is actually assisting us to ensure that we abide by the policy. So there are two types of church business meetings according to the church manual, page 134. Major items should be decided at a regular or specially called business meeting. Listen to this. There are regular business meetings, then there are specially called business meetings. So in other words, we have two types of business meetings. So in short, the regular ones are the ones that we are supposed to call. The same applies even to constituents meetings. We have regular constituents meetings, and sometimes we may have some specially called constituents meetings that may happen because of some issue, some case that needs attention at that level. So ultimately, we may end up with specially called constituents meetings or business meetings if it is at a local church. So it's important that we notice this. The fact that they are regular business meetings, it means those are supposed to be expected. Preferably, it's best that even we put them on our calendar, on our local church calendars, on our itineraries, because they are regular, that are supposed to be done. And at the same time, how often now do we do these business meetings? According to the to page 138 of the church manual, under section that talks of the work of the board, that is of the church board, it says, encourage each department. This is one of the responsibilities of the church board. I think it should be point number 8. It says the way the church board is supposed to encourage each department to report at least quarterly to the board and to members at business meetings or in Sabbath meetings in regards to spiritual nature and evangelism. So what is happening here? This is what is happening. The church board, if it is an effective, efficient church board, one of the things that it has to ensure it's done, each department leader is supposed to present a report at least quarterly to the board members at business meetings, which means every quarter, all departments, that's from the elders department, from the elders themselves down to the last department in the church, are supposed to make a report to the church business meeting. What are they reporting? They are basically reporting activities, the activities that they have been doing throughout that quarter. So at the end of each quarter, before we start another quarter, or as soon as we start another quarter, it's crucial that each department leader reports to the church what they managed to do from January to March. So in short, all the church board members, all the leaders that we have, they are supposed to make a report. So as part of our regular reports, before actually reports are taken to the conference for reporting purposes, it's important that that same report be reported according to the manual, first to the board and to members at business meetings. It's not at business meeting, it's not either or. It's first to the board, then once we receive the report from the department, then we take that report, each one of the leaders reports to members at business meeting. So it's each department. So it's not a report that is combined. This is not a combined report, but according to the manual, each department, so in other words, each department leader, first the elder will have to stand and report how many people they visited that particular quarter from January to March. Each elder, the elders department leader, being the first elder, stands up to report to the business meeting how many people or members that were ill that they visited. Each and as elders, they also report that if they manage maybe to do communion service, these are some of the assignments that are in their office. So all these are part of their report. And in short, every church is supposed to have a business meeting quarterly. Then these are samples that we find here. Church Manual, page 189. It says the church clerk's report is like this. If you go to the notes, that's on notes on business meeting, you realize that a report from the clerk, showing the present membership of the church and the number of members received and those transferred to other churches. So this is what the report is the clerk is reporting. They are reporting present membership, they are reporting members that they received, members that transferred out, they are reporting members that were removed, those that died. And it says here, a brief statement of the decisions of the church board in its meetings may interest members. So some of the decisions of the church board that may be necessary to bring to the church business meeting can actually be shared with the business meeting. So you also realize that the personal ministries report is also on page 189. But remember, on page 189, there are basically samples of the kind of reports or ideas on what to be reported by a particular department. But in essence, according to page 134, we discovered that every department leader, so according to page 138, every department leader is supposed to report to the church board and to the business meeting. So personal ministers are supposed, the department is supposed to report outreach, a statement of outreach or missionary activities, including their community services activities, together with plans for the future work. This should be followed by a report from the personal ministry secretary. So each one of them has a report. Treasurer reports the amount of tithe received and amount of tithe sent to the conference, a statement of mission offerings received and forwarded, and a statement showing local church funds received and dispersed. So this is the treasurer's report. So whatever was done has to be reported by the treasurer. All the monies that were received and dispersed are supposed to be reported not to the board, but to the board and to the business meeting. So the whole church has to know. There's one interesting thing here. With no clear understanding of what a given task requires, there is little likelihood that people will want to accept the job. Ill-defined assignments lead to frustration, both for those attempting to do the task and those trying to motivate them to work. Job descriptions for positions of service in the church should be clearly stated. So if you read page 109 of the Minister's Handbook, it clearly states that every leader in the church is supposed to be given or to be favored with a job description. So one of the challenges that we normally have is people cannot report because they don't know why they are in that particular office. So the Minister's Handbook requires that we come up with a job description. I'm sure even in our various those that have worked in the corporate world, we are familiar with job descriptions, and you sign to say this is what is expected of you in this particular office, and you sign to say this is what I will do. So it is also prudent, it is also crucial that every member, every leader in the church has a job description. It will help in this way. Even when they will report, their job description will actually assist and clarify. So you discover that on page 134, we realize that major items are supposed to be discussed, are supposed to be presented to the business meeting at its regular or specially called meeting. So what are the major items that are supposed to be voted? So when I checked through the manual, this is what I discovered. I just used a business meeting. That was the easier approach. Just on when to search, typed business meeting, and I was basically looking for hits where it is expected that the church business meeting has to vote on that particular matter. And this is what I discovered throughout the church manual. Membership issues, according to page 43 and 70, for members to be voted in or out, it's not done by the board, it is actually done by the business meeting. So if the board does, it's not yet done. It has to be taken to the church because the church business meeting has the final say. So the church board, in short, on these issues, they will basically be doing, they'll be basically recommending to the business meeting. Then discipline issues, the church manual says on page 42 and 70, again, discipline issues have their, it's a business meeting that has the final say on disciplinary issues. Programming issues, if you go on page 134, it will also tell you that as far as voting is concerned on programming, in short, you will realize that if you go on page 134, it talks about reports being given to the church, and based on those reports, a proposed plan of action should be presented to the church for its approval. That is, to the business meeting for its approval. So what that means is, if you actually, sometimes the manual does not use the term business meeting, it says to the church. When it says to the church, it's basically meaning to the business meeting. So programming issues, it actually tells us that when it comes to programming, when it comes to they are supposed to be presented, it actually says they are supposed to be presented in writing to the business meeting. And it is the business meeting that will vote all that has been planned. And these programs are voted by the business meeting. And when the business meeting accepts, then that program becomes legal. But it also says including the budget. So you realize that when it is supposed to, when it includes budget, it means it also includes, because the calendar or the plan, when the manual refers to the plan, it's actually referring to the calendar. So when we come up with a plan, when we come up with a program outline, the program outline is basically the plan, and the plan, for it to be voted together with the budget, the natural thing that should be done is that you can't do a budget without detail on the program or on the calendar of who is doing what. Because if our calendar does not have the preachers for divine service and afternoon for the whole year, the natural thing that will happen is it's difficult for us to come up with a budget. So once you have a program, once you have a plan for the year, it has to be populated with detail of who is doing what and what is the expected expense for that particular activity on that particular day. Then we come up with a daily budget, a weekly budget, a monthly budget, and totally, and ultimately a yearly budget. So the programming will actually speak to the finance and budgeting issues. So you realize that on page 145, it also emphasizes that we are supposed to vote a budget. But for us to vote a budget, it has to be clear with all the detail so that we don't find ourselves meeting accidental in courts expenses that were not budgeted for. Yet people knew there is a Sabbath coming. People knew there are preachers that are needed. Preachers knew they would prefer someone not from their church, meaning they have to budget for that. They have to program and budget for it. So budgets are also voted by the church at large because it's the one that is supposed to finance. Then election into office, page 77 and 78, is done by the church. So no one will get into an office without the official approval of the business meeting. Then the reports and evaluation of work, according to page 134, it's supposed to be done by the business meeting. So we are supposed to report report activities, and also evaluation of work is done by the business meeting. So only a church business meeting is authorized to make final discipline decisions. So this is according to the Minister's Handbook, page 158. Final discipline decisions are done only by the business meeting. So this is a major item. Then you also realize that in a business meeting, members have a right to ask detailed questions. Usually, however, they will allow embarrassing details to remain with a smaller group, such as the church elders or the church board. The pastor should not be alone in knowing the full details of the disciplinary issues. So as the pastor, yes, we may know the detail, but we should not know all this detail alone. And sometimes it's not permissible. It's not acceptable for us to share all the detail, because some of the detail may be embarrassing. So it's supposed to be kept with a smaller group. And according to the Minister's Handbook, page 104, in addition, votes on membership issues are frequently processed during the Sabbath worship service. Now, this is clarifying one question that someone might have to say, How do we deal with membership issues? We have members that are transferring in and members that are transferring out. How do we go about it? According to the minister's handbook that guides us, you won't find this in the church manual. You only find it in the minister's handbook. So we are the ones who are supposed to know, and we are supposed to guide the church. And how do we guide the church? When we have membership issues, members that are being voted in or out, we can do that during the Sabbath worship service. So you don't necessarily need to call a business meeting 7 days or 14 days ahead in order to address membership issues. For membership issues, transfer in or transfer out, these ones can be done every Sabbath, whenever we meet during worship. Then, page 134 says again, the business meeting agenda should include reports about the work of the church. I had hinted this. At least once a year, the agenda should include the reports covering church activities. Based on those reports, a proposed plan of action for the next year, including an annual budget, should be presented for approval. So a proposed plan, that is a calendar, and a budget are supposed to be approved by the church. And this is done the previous year in preparation for the next year. According to the manual, we don't vote the plan or calendar and budget in the year that we are actually implementing that budget year. So we do it previously. Then the budget should be voted at a business meeting at which all members have the opportunity to express their views and accept ownership of the plan. So you have two things that are happening here. Page 147 is basically telling us that the budget should be voted by the business meeting for it to be implemented without problems, to be implemented legally. It needs to be voted by the church. Then the budget should be presented to the church, that is, to the church business meeting, for its study and adoption, and for plans to assure that funds shall be provided to balance the budget during the coming year. So what is basically happening here is we present to the church and the church will accept. Then it is the church that is supposed to fund that particular budget. So reports of all funds received and disbursed should be presented at the regular business meetings of the church. And a copy of these reports should be given to the leading officers. So according to the page 91 of the church manual, all the monies that were used in this particular quarter are supposed to be shared, or we're supposed to present that information to the business meeting. And this is to do with major items. It says here, only at a duly called business meeting, church business meeting, can such a choice be made by the church. What is it? This is to do with maybe as a church we want to unite, or we want to disband a local church or to dissolve a local church. This can only be done in a business meeting kind of setting. Then the church board, according to page 104 of the minister's handbook, it says the church board stands as the next highest authority of the local church committee system. So the pastor generally chairs the church board, but may pass this position to another church member. Beyond these two positions, the pastor should avoid chairing a large number of additional committees, but the pastor or a designated elder should serve as an ex-officio member of every committee. So what's basically happening is the next highest authority of the church committee system is the church board. So it comes next after the business meeting. So there is also one very important thing to note as well. I will not labor you with this one much, but it's basically emphasizing the issues of budget and that they are supposed to be presented to the business meeting. And this is the treasurer and the board. It says on page 147, this is quite interesting. The treasurer's direct line of responsibility is to the church board. The treasurer looks to the board for approval of regular and open financial statements. Some churches may also work with the finance committee, giving guidance to the treasurer, but the finance committee is also subject to the church board. The pastor also will work closely with the treasurer, but like the finance committee, is subject to the church board in financial matters of the church. In addition to reports to the board, the treasurer also carries the responsibility for reporting to the church in business sessions. So listen to the last point. Yes, the treasurer is supposed to report to the board, but ultimately they are supposed to report to the church business in business session. So you realize that as far as financial matters are concerned, even us as pastors, we are subject to the board in financial matters. Meaning, is the whatever we propose to do, it has to go through the scrutiny of the church board and be voted and implemented. So we don't necessarily go and get money from the treasurer without the approval of the board, because once it's done that way, it is no longer legal, it is no longer permissible. So you also realize that according to the minister's handbook, this is something very interesting that I also found. When departing a post of service, leave behind good church records. That is for us pastors, such as a church directory, including officers and committees, financial reports, church board, and committee meetings minutes, which means those small committees that we have, personal ministries committee, the pathfinder committees, the whatever committee we have led by the department leader should actually have its file together with its minutes, because whatever they discuss there is what they will recommend to the board, and the board will recommend to the business meeting if necessary. So decisions, page 104, this is very, very important. Page 105.
Pastor Chizhande, 5 more minutes.
Thank you. Minister's Handbook, page 105, decisions should be made by the most appropriate committee. Each committee should have clearly defined terms of reference and authority and should operate within these definitions. Because of the waste of time and talent to duplicate responsibility for decision making between various committees, each committee should know its areas of concern and its authority to act or to recommend for approval by another body. So you realize that at a local church level, the business meeting is the ultimate. So sometimes the church board is charged to act, but not on all issues is the church board charged to to act. On some issues, it's supposed to recommend to the business meeting so that the business meeting can vote. So those major items that we talked about, it is the mandate of the business meeting. The church board cannot vote on those issues and act on them. It has to recommend to the business meeting. So I'll share this one. The final point that we learn, or the overarching lesson that we learn from the business meeting concept, from making use of the business meeting, it is this. Page 104 of the of Minister's Handbook, it says, all of us together are wiser than any one of us alone. So if we are together, so it's only the business meeting that brings all of us together as a church to make decisions, to decide the way we will do business, to chart our way forward as far as doing business is concerned. Then, when we are like that, we are wiser than any one of us alone. But there are people who believe what they propose, what they think is the best idea, even though you are a group, they will force it on you no matter you don't want it. So naturally, they are thinking they are wiser than all of us. But the truth is, according to the Minister's Handbook, when we are together, we bring our ideas together, we refine our ideas together, we agree on an idea together. What we do there, when we come up with a solution, with a resolution, whatever we do, we are wiser than any one of us in that committee, standing alone and charting the way forward. May God bless you.